my goodness, we're here. What's going on? Second time in a week. Well, I guess with Devious Dungeons, Foreboding Forests, and The Coolest Cats, it's time for the Dark Orb. How's it going, everyone? It's Thursday, which is for this week only, the new Friday. It's a weekend for us here in the UK, as this weekend we see the UK Games Expo.
Woo!
With me today. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this feels like normality almost. I mean, what do we do? We're going to an expo. Is this crazy talk? Is it the sensible thing for us to do? I'm joined by my good friend Neil, who tomorrow I'm going to see for the very first time.
Yeah.
And we also have Mr. Shoot back again.
Hey, Doug.
Renegade
Hey,
Master.
what's going on?
How you doing, my friend?
Doug.
Doing well. I was just about to check on Neil's Kickstarter.
Yeah, we're going to cover that today.
All right,
It's
awesome.
Really super cool. So there's a few things on the list. We are going to kickstart the weekend on a Thursday, because tomorrow I'm going to be in Birmingham with Neil and a couple dozen other people. Apologies, first of all, in the background there's a bit of a buzzing. Neil is gallivanting in a hotel room as we speak, which is just shocking.
Actually, a friend's place.
That's even worse.
But I'm on my laptop, so yeah. Apologies. I know there's a bit of a buzz in the background. Apologies if the picture and sound is a bit rubbish. I'm going to try and stay muted.
We spent a little while just trying to work out where that buzz is coming from, because it's not the first time Neil's used that, and we unplugged stuff, we turned the lights off, all sorts of things, and yeah, we've got no idea. So it's either that, or we don't have Neil, and we can't do this show without Neil. Not after the amazing contributions he did last time. And plus, we have a project of his to talk about, so it kind of makes sense to have him on the show, or we'll be talking behind its back, and wouldn't be the first time for that either.
Just like normal.
How's your week been, Doug?
It's been okay. Yeah, can't complain too much.
Well, you can.
Been all right.
And Neil, what about yours?
Yes, same.
Same. So it's not even been a week.
Right.
It's been a while since we had two shows in kind of close quarters to each other. So this is really great. Thank you both for coming on. We've got a few Kickstarters to go through. And then we can just talk about gaming news, about the expo that's coming tomorrow. I don't know what's happening out in the US, Doug, if there's any updates or any news about things that are happening there.
No, we're all waiting for UK Games Expo. You guys are like the guinea pigs for us, for the gaming convention scene for the world. I mean,
I'm a little concerned about how small the convention is compared to the kind of the usual show. Had a look at the program for it, and I ran through the exhibitors. There are very few exhibitors that I'm particularly excited about. Freely are going to be there. Obviously, our good friends Matt and Dave are going to be manning that stall.
Who? I don't know these.
It's just a little games company.
Yeah. Like a hairy guy and a less hairy guy. It's not me and Neil. We could probably cover that off if we needed to. Our good friends Matt Tyler Jones and Dave Seamark from the Effect podcast. If you don't know the Effect podcast, it's great if you're liking Swedish RPG. It's pretty much unrivaled, certainly in UK podcasts for that sort of stuff, talking about role-playing games and also actual plays and things like that. Right. That said, go on.
At the end, can I give you my list of vendors at the UK Games Expo
Please.
that I would like to see if I were actually going to the UK Games Expo?
Yeah, let's do it. And I tell you what, let's try and keep an eye open, and maybe we can talk about those next week if we're able to.
I mean, Neil's definitely on the list.
We'll take photos, Doug, of anything, and just make you jealous, and just send you and go. Oh, look where we are.
That's kind of what happened in previous years. photos with like your thumb, partway in the
picture. Yeah.
And for anyone who wants to see any of these terrible photos, if you haven't already joined our Discord at the Dark Orb, you can find the link at thedarkorb.co.uk, and you're more than welcome to join. We have a conventional talk channel, is I think what we called it in the end. We'll throw some pictures in there, and there'll be discussion in there. And there's other channels as well if you want to talk about other role-playing rubbish. So, I mean, yeah, we could talk about Games Expo first, really.
I didn't mean to you do what you had planned.
No, you've completely sidelined the show now, Doug. So let's talk about the Expo. We're going to the Expo tomorrow, Doug.
I know. I'm so jealous. I'm literally I'm living through you guys right now, because I'm UK Games Expo is one of those conventions that is on my list of conventions that I want to go to at some point in my life, just because I've met so many wonderful people from over there that I would love to see, and there's so many vendors over there that aren't able to come over here into the States, and there's just a lot of folks doing some really great work and putting out some really great games, and I would love to meet them face to face.
Yeah, I mean,
Doug, is that sorry, go on.
Go on.
I was just wondering, is that because they are British or maybe European vendors who don't make it out to the States? Is that what you mean, or just?
I think a lot of think that there's a lot of games that whether they are European or British game publishers that just aren't at the size yet to go to Gen Con, to come over here for these bigger US events. But I think they're right on that verge of one or two really big hits, and they'll probably be able to fund some of these bigger these bigger events that UK Games. Not that I'm trying to diminish UK Games Expo. That's a very big event in and of its own. But it's also probably more local to them than coming all the way across to.
It's less of a gamble.
Yeah, sure.
It's way less of a gamble for them to do that event.
Right.
And the thing is that you're right, and I'm belittling it a little. The more accurate thing for me to say is that there are very few of the big companies that are going to be there. We've got Asmodee, obviously, and some of the larger vendors here. We've got Free League, and there are some other companies that are going to be there, manufacturers that are going to be there, like Katana there. You can see if I go back and share that screen.
Modiphius, presumably.
Modiphius, I'm not sure. Are they there now?
Are they not?
I think they pulled out. I'm not sure.
Oh, did they really?
Double check. Yeah, they're not there.
Wow, that's surprising.
Yeah. Modiphius aren't there. Chaosium aren't there. There are a few that made a decision, and I totally understand it, to just put safety first. Also, you probably find realistically that their profits have probably relatively gone up, but they're having to be super careful about their outgoings to make sure that it doesn't drop. And Andy says that Mongoose aren't there either. I should think that they're probably just having to safeguard, because actually it's really expensive running a company, and the profit margins aren't huge in role-playing. And I can imagine that although they've managed to stay afloat, they probably had to put loads of people on furlough and that sort of stuff. Probably going to an expo, potentially losing half your workforce if there is another surge, and not necessarily selling a lot because actually the turnout isn't that huge, could be a real gamble. And for a company that's on the knife edge, that gives the impression that they're doing well because their beautiful websites are still operating, etc. Actually, we don't know what their margins are like right now, and we don't know how much money they've really got. And it's probably a huge financial risk. Whereas perhaps the smaller independent publishers who maybe don't have the same overheads have got a little bit less impact by paying a couple of $100, a couple of £100 for a table. I don't know. This is speculation, and I don't have any insider knowledge, but I can imagine that it's a lot of it is like that. The hall is like a third of what it normally is, if that.
That was going to be my question. Is the layout of the hall this year much less condensed than it has been in previous years? And that Because just looking at it, it looks like it might be.
Well,
like the alleyways are a little bit wider.
This is Hall 2, and they haven't mapped Hall 3 on this document. And it's kind of hard to see, but looking through the numbers, I don't know if you all can see this on the screen, but the prefix number is the hall that they're in. And so pretty much everything is in Hall 2. So I would imagine that Hall 3 is doing other things.
There's normally 2 really big halls, aren't there?
Yeah. I guess Hall 3 is the event desk, the shop and drop, the board game library, and the open gaming. And I don't know. I'm speculating. But maybe I think Hall 3 is pretty small in comparison to Hall 2. It's been a while. It's been, oddly enough, a couple of years since I've been to the NEC, and I don't quite remember it. But like Hall 1 and 2, I think are the big halls. Anyone in the comments who's watching, if you want to correct me, then please do. Yeah, Andy's just said Hall 3 is not that big.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, but Mr. Dugalo, who do we need to check out? Let's keep a list. Neil, do you have a pen and paper handy?
These are all probably games.
I got paper.
To you both, these are probably vendors that you've probably run into
this
numerous
is really
times.
Not important. Let's discuss it nonetheless.
Yeah, it's probably no big deal for you
I
guys.
can guess that First Falling Leaf is going to be on that list, but
are they? I didn't even see them on the list.
No,
yeah, I don't think that they're doing UK Games Expo this, but they would be. They would be on my list if they were. I've been a big fan of Ben and that team there. That they put out some really great RPGs that I think that they're one of those small studios that makes quality. They don't put out a whole lot, but what they put out is really high quality. Okay. Of course, the first company that I would go see is, of course, Mantic. Mantic is one of those companies that I'm a big fan of. That
Doug,
what?
Matthew, Dave. Have you heard what Doug just said? Matthew and Dave. I know you're not watching, but you'll catch up on this. The first company he'd go and see is not.
No, really. I'm not saying that. But the first one.
We're going to have words here. Mantic Games, though. I mean, they do amazing minis-based games, right?
They do,
and they are
everything that Ronnie and Rob and that team does.
Ooh, name dropping as well.
What?
My buddies.
I see those guys very often.
They came out for tea the other day.
I see them at events every once in a while over here in the States, but I don't get to see them very often. So whenever I do get to see them, I always like catching up with them. But they would be the first. They'd be one of the first companies that I would want to just.
There's no take backsies. Last time I saw Mantic Games and actually stopped was at Salute, which is a wargaming expo. Yep. It was a couple of years ago, strangely enough, and I got a free Hellboy mini, which was cool. It was just before the release, I think.
Yep.
They just had a whole bunch of minis that they were just giving away. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I get along with Ronnie and Rob pretty well, so I always like to catch up with them when I can.
So that's Mantic Games. They're in Hall 2, 368.
Nice. Yeah, I don't get to play a lot of their games a whole lot, but I think what they do put out is really fun, and I like the fact that a lot of their minis games you can use them in different systems, so you're getting a lot of value for what you're spending on, what you're spending your dollars on. So I've always been, a big supporter of Mantic and that team there.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
So another company I'd go see is Nightfall. Was it Nightfall's?
Yeah, Nightfall. They did Terminator.
Yep.
And that game, Slay Industries. There we go.
Right.
Think about it for a second.
I'd go see them.
I did back and then cancelled the remake of Slay Industries, and I did the same with Terminator, to be honest with you. One of the friends of the show, who I unfortunately don't think is probably watching right now because he's on a train, was not that enamored with the rules for Terminator, if I recall correctly.
I can't remember. I know I've
a little extra crunchy.
Looked at it. Yeah. That was one of the things that was with those games are a little more crunchy than I prefer. But they are a company that I've never got a chance to meet in person, and I would like to, you know, just,
I've met them before, I think, and they were really, really top guys, really, really nice.
They seem to be.
So yeah, absolutely worth checking out if you like the properties, if you like kind of post-apocalyptic sort of cyberpunk. Slay Industries I'm thinking of. It's kind of Running Man type thing meets the old 80s game Smash TV. Then Slay Industries is awesome. And if you don't know what the Terminator is, then you probably need to like watch a few videos and then come back. But yeah, worth checking out, worth looking at the IP, worth checking out the guys and talking to them. They're all really nice people. And they are at Nightfall Games. Let's have a look. 2856.
Nice.
For second hall, 856. Because these are all, looks like these are all the second hall, to be honest with you. Who else is on your list, Mr. Doug?
The other one that would be right near the top, right there with Mantic. And these are folks that I've never gotten a chance to meet in person, but I'm a big fan of the things that the products that they put out and the lines that they put out. Is Colin behind the Colin at Battle Systems. Have you guys seen these battle systems? Like
that's the cardboard stuff, isn't it? We've spoken about those.
Yeah, that's the stuff that's like cardboard terrain that's all like modular and they put out this Core Space board game. Yeah, they put out Core Space. Like, holy smoke, that guy, like the engineering that has to go into all of those little card. I mean, you look at it on the surface and it's just like, oh, it's cardboard stuff. You just slot it in and you set it all up. But when you think about like designing that, there's a lot of engineering that goes in behind that, and like having what's that?
Just getting it printed right.
Right. And then to make a board game on top of this terrain on top of it. I think the terrain just in general I looked at before they put out this Core Space game, and I thought it was impressive back then just because it's light and it can fold down into it's pretty flat, so you can carry it around pretty easily, and it looks for cardboard terrain it looks really, really good.
I remember you getting excited about it before it arrived. I'm still kind of skeptical about the longevity of it,
I mean, yeah.
That's not me criticizing it. It's me being concerned as an investor, I guess, that you play it and it falls apart, which is kind of not what you want. But I haven't really had any hands-on time other than seeing their setups at Games Expo, and I have seen their booth at Games Expo for several years running, and it always looks amazing, and I always stop and draw. I've never bought it. The reason why I've never bought it is because I don't think it would get to my table. It's not even the money, although it's not cheap. It's just I don't think it would get to my table. I mean, I've only played Nemesis like for 10 minutes of one session. We discussed in the last episode. I basically died in the first 15 minutes, and then my other half just demolished the rest of the game whilst I sat around watching and then cooking the dinner. And this is on a Sunday afternoon, and I'm thinking, like, I want to be bitter because I'm not playing, and there are probably ways I could join in, but there was so much other practical stuff to do anyway. It was probably for the best.
Sure.
But Core Space, yeah. If you're a big fan of space, minis, is it a skirmish game?
It's like you can play it solo, you can play it PvP. You can play it like campaign. Like there's just so many different, and that's one thing that I really appreciate about that game is that like there's so many different ways to play it that like and it's not like half baked in either mode. Like you can actually play it like and feel like you're getting a legitimate gaming experience, however you want to play it, which is awesome. I'm not like I love minis games and I love sci-fi minis games, and like the one thing that I hate about minis games is making terrain. So like Battle System is totally like that. I feel like that like Colin when he was designing this stuff, he's like, okay, Doug hates doing this, so let me make this as easy as possible. And how can I get him to spend his money on? And like, I'm pretty much a sucker on for all that stuff. If I can set it up and then take it down pretty easily and not have to paint it and assemble it and or build it, I should say, and it doesn't take up the whole bunch of room in my house, and that's kind of a product that I'm very. In fact, as I'm sitting here, I realize.
Nice. That's still in shrink.
That's actually one of two copies that I have. because I'm a weirdo.
Yeah, you basically, I mean, I can't really criticize. I do the same with books, but you do have basically like 2 copies of most things, right? One for
sometimes if I like something really well, then I usually
genuinely
do.
nothing wrong with that.
And there's just a lot of value in that box. Like I don't know if you guys have ever seen like that's like you can usually pick that up for a little around $100 US, and like there's a lot of stuff in there. It's crazy. Anyway, they're the other vendor that I would go see at UK Games Expo.
I'm just trying to think who else is on my list. Let me see here. It's kind of hard to view.
Joel is asking an interesting question in the chat.
You're
wondering if there are, yeah, that's it. If there are any non-UK people exhibiting.
I'm not sure that there are.
Really?
Unless they've got a UK office, if you like.
Yeah, bigger places might have a UK branch, yeah. Or like Free League, they might have some, some people.
Well, it's not even really Free League, is it? It's Matt and Dave.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was saying. Yeah. A lot of companies might just have some people who will
some reps, effectively,
who
know the product.
Exactly.
I'm belittling Matt and Dave. The reality is they know the Free League catalogue as well as
they know inside out.
They do.
Yeah, they do. They know very well indeed. I'm just looking through to see who else I would jump on here. I mean,
I'm trying to see.
All Rolled Up, great accessories. They published the expansion, Cthulhu Hack. Lovely stuff. We've got 4 All Rolled Up things, the like dice roll things. If you don't know what they are, I can show you. So there we go. If I bring my camera up and get rid of that, so that's not rolled up, and then you open that up. Ta-da! And in here is probably about 40 dice, I would say. I'm not going to show them because that would be a mess. Really invaluable though. You can keep your pens and cards and all sorts. So they're really great. Lovely people as well. Really nice people. Atlantis Miniatures, they do really great minis. Friend of the show, Angeli, has painted up quite a few of those.
I see Red Scar is going to be there.
Don't know Red Scar.
They did. I'm trying to think here. They are doing the Hellboy RPG.
Okay. Yeah.
They just did the other RPG for They're basically the publishing company that Mantic is contracted out to do most of their, because Mantic kind of wants to get into like the RPG industry, and I think they're the company that kind of they brought on or kind of collaborated with to kind of help them with that.
Yoel has just said they don't know Mutant.
The Matt
and Dave.
Matt and Dave, yeah.
I mean, technically, I know Dave does, but yeah, it's not something they particularly feature. And Bruce, good to see you, Bruce, on the train just past Crew. So you may break up while watching. We're not planning to break up. We've got quite a close relationship going on right now. But we'll let you know. I'll tell you all about it tomorrow if you drop off. Good to see everyone who's joining us live. Geek and Son are there if you need a decent gaming table and you have a lot of money in your pocket.
Yeah.
We're going cheap with the Wormwood gaming table, and that's still expensive. Thankfully, we haven't had to put really any money down. Cheap. Yeah, it's relative. I mean, Geek and Son is another level of expensive, unfortunately. But in both cases, once we get to the UK shipping, etc., it's going to be a challenge. Looking to see who else we've got. But there are plenty. Most of them are, as we said, kind of smaller companies. Fantasy Flight, Asmodee.
They're going to be there. That's usual.
Awesome. DN Dice, if you like. So some metal dice. Yeah, go on.
I don't think Asmodee is going to Gen Con.
Really?
I'm pretty sure. Let me just double check. That would be interesting if they do. If they are doing.
When they're a French company, they've got quite a large office in the UK.
Right.
So that might be some of it, I guess.
That could be. Interesting. I'll have to look into that.
Then we've got Local Battle Mats. I mean, their products are great.
Battle mats are great. Yep.
Yeah, I did actually back the Wilderness set because as everyone knows, I'm running Zimbram. It might be quite handy if we actually ever get to play that in person. Proof will be in the pudding there. Yeah, and there are a few others. River Horse is there again. Just going through this alphabetically, really. Lots of companies beginning with Cognitive Merchant is there. Really like Cognitive Merchant. They do some great handcrafted leather things, like they do dice pouches and GM kits and hats and goggles, and yeah, they're really, really talented, really nice people. They do bespoke work. Always stupendous, quite small but really dramatic display of really great artisanal work. Titan Forge, and yeah, lots and lots of independent vendors, game stores basically. And it does kind of feel like most of this is game stores, which is kind of, you know, you can do that from home really. Basically, but it's also the social, right? I mean, you know, we're going to meet people that we've not seen in years or have never met before, and try and pretend that everything's okay.
Yeah,
which is weird. Yeah,
it is.
So
yeah,
Neil and I will be at the Games Expo tomorrow. There'll be a few others. I'll be wearing a t-shirt with the Dark Orb logo in black and white, not to be confused with friend of the show Paul, who might be wearing a color one, and I'll of course be wearing the hat. Feel free to say hi.
Likewise, I'm there all weekend.
You got any distinguishing marks, Neil?
Well, no. None that I'm telling you about, anyway. I'll be wearing something with a Paladin logo on, and I look like this.
But with a face mask on.
Oh yeah, I have a face mask, so I look like this.
Now there's something that I am going to show you.
If you see me, do come and say hello, because it's always lovely.
Do come and say hello.
Do.
So one thing that I will be carrying around with me, and for anyone who is coming who wants to say hello, if you tell me the name of this show. Neil, what's the name of this show?
This exact one we're on tonight?
Yes.
Kickstart your weekend. Kickstart the weekend.
Your weekend.
Your weekend. I was right first time.
And you were indeed. So when I see you, if you
so what do I get? What do I get?
You get something that, as a dice vendor, you don't really care about. But let's see how this shows. Let's see if this.
Oh, you get a nice leather.
You're not. No, that's mine. You can. What do we have here?
Oh, nice.
So it's trying to operate things in 3D. We're going to get a zoom, focus. No.
Very cool.
Let's see if I can get that to focus.
Nifty.
There we go.
There you go.
For a second, it worked.
It's
Try that again.
Andy's giving you a hard time and is saying blurry dice.
Blurry dice, yeah. Well, Andy, that's no blurry dice for you. Don't worry. There we go. We can just
there you
go.
go.
Yeah, it looks good.
Very cool.
So we've got a small selection of these. First come, first served. And any that are left in my pocket at the end will be in my pocket at the end. But yeah, we'll have a few left over. So we'll discuss maybe some giveaways and maybe I'll send a couple out to a few of our long-standing Discord sufferers as well. So please, join the Discord if you haven't done already. Should we talk about Kickstarter, which is what we generally do in this session? We've got a few things that are on. I think it's probably worthwhile us paying a little bit more heed to Highcaster because we discussed it very briefly last week. and I kind of shrugged it off. And I don't think it was necessarily fair for me to do that. So let me just load that back up. Because, I mean, in reality, the system is kind of interesting, and it does look like it might be a bit PBTA-y. Powered by the Apocalypse E. So let's bring that back up. Here we go. Looking back at it again, I think the price point is really interesting, because I had backed this and then I cancelled backing it. In that there's only one pledge level, which is $15. And with that, you get the PDF and you get the coupon cost to get the hardcover at cost through Drive-Thru RPG, which is not a bad shout, actually. So you get the PDF, and then if you decide you want a hardcover copy, you can get that as well. And if you don't want it, fine. So I think it's actually quite a nice way of doing it. It gives you some choice. And the story is a little bit derivative. Civilization rising from the ashes, reaching out into the vast unknown. But it is interesting that they've chosen to blend a few systems for their caster systems, they call it. They're using polyhedral dice, but there's a D20. Roll your D20, 9 or less is a failure, 10 to 19 is a success with a caveat, and 20 plus is a success with a boon. So that actually is very powered by the Apocalypse. But they talk about this modified then with a pool of dice. Now, what I'm not clear on is how that's then modified with the pool of dice. Maybe if that's like an extra effect, or if that actually modifies your final result, and they've kind of just screwed up with their talking. Because it would make sense if it was roll your D20, modify with your pool of dice, and then that's your outcome.
I would have liked a little bit more detail there. And I think on that top section there that you've got on the screen, it sounds like they're trying to appeal to everyone. It says, this is a narrative-driven game that puts a tremendous amount of weight in emergent storytelling. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I know what that means. But with enough game crunch to provide the type of fantasy role-playing game experience gamers have come to expect. Which sort of feels like we want to appeal to people who like traditional crunchy games, and we want to appeal to people who like more modern indie narrative storytelling type games.
It does feel a little bit.
And I suspect it's one of those or the other. I suspect it's more narrative driven, but I wish that was clearer, because one of the reasons I'm not backing this is because I don't really know what kind of game it is.
Yeah,
I would have liked a bit more detail there.
They've got this scenario here with the creator, Christopher Gray. The scenario to explain the system and some actual videos about it. And that actually puts me off. It kind of puts me off when it feels like they're so unsure of their game that not only do they not want to give you the details in the game, but also they feel they have to justify it, over-justify it with lots and lots of playtest videos. It's great that it's been playtested, and I'm sure actually it's a very good system. You know, Christopher Gray's renowned for putting out stuff that's good, but I'm still skeptical.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Christopher's. Christopher's a good friend of mine, and not that I'm trying to name drop again before I get called out on it yet again, Phil.
It's not until you start talking about all the sports stars that you've gone and eaten dinner with.
Christopher Gray and I have only gone, hung out after hours.
Second base, right? I'm joking.
He's a great guy, very talented,
absolutely, very important to the community.
I do feel that like maybe this campaign wasn't explained. Like, I don't think that this particular, the way that the campaign page was built, probably could have used some tweaks. Like if I were to like look at it before Christopher hit launch, I would have probably said, well, can you explain the system a little bit better and give some more examples? Because there's one thing that's like what you said, Phil. There's nothing worse than just kind of giving a vague overview of what your product is, and then having people click on videos in order to get more details. If you can't do that, you're not selling it effectively. you really need to have that information out there, transparent, and boom, this is what it is right away. And if you want to know more, click on this video. Not this is
if you don't
this is
get
kind
it.
of, this is a vague kind of answer of what our product is. If you want to know exactly what it is, click on this video. Like, that's not a very, very effective way to sell.
Especially when, I mean, a decent rule set, I mean, yes, there's always going to be extra complication, but you should be able to explain the fundamental rule set in a few lines, really. This is me, like, kind of jumping to a different subject very briefly. Yoel has actually called me out on this. Now, yeah, that's kind of true. What actually happened was I backed it, and then I cancelled, and then I backed it, and then I cancelled, and then with 4 hours to go, I backed it again. Over the course of the entire campaign. Yeah, it's true. Guilty as charged.
Going back to the whole Christopher Gray caster, I will say that, for $15, you'll get a good game. Like, there's going to be a good game there. Like,
there will
it's
be,
not.
definitely.
It's just hard. It's just too bad that it's not conveyed in a way that is really, could sell that game a little bit more.
It doesn't feel too accessible right now.
Right. So I don't think, and then to get a hardcover, I don't know how much the print on demand cost would be to get it shipped to you. I mean,
they'll print it in the UK for us here, so
yeah, so
it'll still be probably $20, $30 maybe. It depends how big the book is.
Yeah, I mean, I've spent $15 on worse stuff. Let's put it that way. I've gone to see the Transformers movies, and that should tell you enough right there.
Have you then gone and bought the Transformers movies, even though you knew that you would never watch them again?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Have you watched them since?
I've watched the Bumblebee movie.
Bumblebee movie rocks. I mean, that needs all the love. But I saw all the Michael Bay movies at the cinema, then bought them all on Blu-ray, then didn't watch them on Blu-ray.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think if folks, have $15 and they can afford it to, I don't think you're going to feel like your $15 was wasted by any means if you back that Kickstarter.
I don't think so either. I think you're completely right there. On to another. Let's see what we've got that's going to end soon. Let's close out that one. I'm going to raise this one just because I think it's kind of interesting, and we haven't actually talked about it.
Okay.
Have you seen this?
I have seen this.
Just no. I mean, this is basically, there was a similar campaign that came out, 2 years ago, that didn't have lights. And now they've added lights. And I'm just kind of, I can see the value in it, but no.
I can, but like, who's playing miniatures games in the dark?
Exactly.
Where you need an LED. Like, I don't understand.
It's like, God, I wish I had some kind of light that I could have at my table.
Yeah.
I want to know who's playing minis games at that scale with that small. I mean, unless you're doing like the tiny little figures, right? That you'd need a lot of this to make it fit on a war game table. And at that point, if someone's got a wargaming table that large, they've probably already got lights. That said, it's doing pretty damn well if you look at the actual. It's successful.
Yeah, I mean,
people obviously want it.
It looks cool. I mean, as far as I just don't think that's not a product for me.
No.
Likewise.
And there's only 5 left.
I feel like I'm on the Dragon's Den.
Yeah. Not going to take out your daughter's inheritance for that.
That's right.
Yeah. This one actually reminds me quite a lot of the conversation we've just had about scenery, though, when we were talking about core space.
Yep.
And this is their second, I think, project. The first one was really popular. Yeah, second created.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it reminds me a lot of the cardboard scenery you get with Infinity. Probably slightly more durable. That's only because it's not difficult to be slightly more durable than the Infinity cardboard scenery. But
what's the price on those?
Hang on, let's work out what we're looking at here.
So you're still looking at like over 100 and...
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, you're going to get the supersized box of everything. You're looking at 100 and that's like $160.
Yep.
$160, So yeah, that said, yeah, I mean, it's very similar to the Infinity stuff, but that is like much more durable stock. It's plastified as well. That's good. So it just means it's got like a varnish or something on it. I'm sure it's great. I really am. If you're a wargamer, then yeah, cool stuff.
Yeah, it is definitely.
Speaking of which, I thought it was really interesting that Infinity, Corvus Belli Infinity, and friend of the show Chris pointed this out. They've made a decision that they're going to stop producing miniatures out of metal, because everything is white metal right now. They're going to thermoplastic.
Good. I like that move.
I have mixed feelings about it because I have a lot of Infinity kits. Half of them aren't, like, I haven't done anything with them. Still haven't played the game. Got the books right there. Right there. And they're all still in shrink. But I kind of like the fact that they're metal.
Oh, Phil, stop.
I think it's just because they make like good melee weapons or something.
I hate metal minis. Oh my god, nothing, because I hate assembling. Like,
oh yeah, I mean, that's really painful.
More frustrating than trying to assemble a metal mini. Like, I just.
Yeah. I mean, that is painful, I must confess, and annoying and messy. And then you get the thing and it's not quite in the right place, or the top half is much heavier than the bottom half and it all falls apart, and you don't really want to drill it because that's just effort. And so you just end up putting much more glue on than you should, hoping that no one notices. I've been down this road. It's not that fun, but I'm still stuck in my ways. So I might have to abandon Infinity now and find some other company that's... I mean, if they've been plastic to begin with, I don't think I'd have a problem with it. That's the irony of it all.
Well, I mean...
Now that they just won't match.
You can't really blame some of these companies that switch over materials because, you know, with these smaller production runs, you know, you have to do what works, and sometimes metal is what, you know. Although I've seen a lot of companies go from resin to plastic. That seems to be more the common case lately. But
even Creature Caster have said they're moving away from resin for some of their new models. They found a new there's a new thermoplastic which I think they said provides more detail than resin, but it's kind of bendy and flexible, cheaper to produce, because with this particular plastic, if the mold doesn't work out for whatever reason, they end up with broken models, or, you know, the detail doesn't work right, they can actually recycle it. So they just take all the damaged sprues, throw them into a, you know, some kind of melting pot, and they just process it through again, which is actually really good. And that's something I'm a very big fan of. But again, the damn thing doesn't break when you drop it, then it's not right. Says a man who's never dropped a mini and therefore doesn't have this problem yet. But yeah, Creature Caster's Judgment will turn up on my doorstep at some point next year, and then I'll be eating my words, because that's all going to be resin and it's going to be horrible. What else do we have? A-State. Do either of you know much about A-State? Because it's exploding on my friends have back.
Really interesting
game. And I know nothing about it. I know it's the second edition. I'm just bringing it up on the screen. But yeah, I know nothing about this game.
I had never heard of it before this Kickstarter, I must admit. Looks really interesting though. I almost love it, but I think Phil, you probably know what the reason that I don't quite love it. I mean, it looks incredible. The art is beautiful. I'm quite fond of a post-apocalyptic, cyberpunky kind of vibe, which is what it looks like it's got. The product page is really nicely done.
Sorry? This right here, Forged in the Dark rules.
That's what it is.
We've had Neil and I have had bad experiences with Forged in the Dark.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say bad. I wouldn't say bad, but
suboptimal.
Suboptimal. Yeah, I think for me, and I won't speak for you, Phil, but I'm pretty sure
you can, because I was in the same damn games.
So yeah, so I run Blades in the Dark, and Phil was one of my players, and we didn't play for that long. We played like 8 or 9 sessions, maybe 10, something like that.
Yeah.
And actually, we had a lot of fun, didn't we?
We had.
But my one line conclusion at the end was that we had fun despite Blades in the Dark, not because of Blades in the Dark. And I love so much about that game. I love the faction play. I love that Doskvol, the setting is amazing. The character classes or playbooks are really interesting. But I really strongly dislike what I feel is a very artificial way of dividing the flow of the game into these different stages. So you have the downtime, and in downtime, there are only certain things you can do. You can only do a certain number of them, and you roll on the little table to see what happens. And then, you start the game, you do this one roll, can't remember what it's called, engagement roll, to launch into the start of the sort of the heist. But then, that's another little phase, kind of boxed phase of its own. And I just found that it just didn't flow. It didn't feel natural to me. And maybe I just was a rubbish GM. I mean, I'm willing to entertain that possibility.
You're definitely not a rubbish GM. No, but I think that one thing that might be the case with Blades in the Dark or with Forged in the Dark, and we haven't proven this out, but I wonder if it's a game that requires, apart from sniggers from people who are as puerile as me, an oral tradition to make the best out of it. And what I mean by that is, I wonder if this is a game that has to be handed down from someone who's played it with someone who's played it with someone who's played it.
Oh, probably.
So sort of like,
maybe.
Maybe the fact that we were learning it from the book, as opposed to you as a GM, for example, having played it in a game that someone else has learned, through some kind of, the traditional storytelling aspect of
that could be true. Although, if that's true, I think that possibly points to a fault in the book, because I think you should just be able to pick up the book and play it as written. And I bought a copy of the book,
and it felt like you were doing it the way it was written.
Yeah, I think I was. I watched some of John Harper's actual plays as well. And yeah, he's great. But yeah, I don't know. It just didn't click with me. And I know people absolutely love it. And I can see why, but yeah, it wasn't quite right for us, was it?
We had a whale of a time though, and the party made it. We're all very silly. The British sense of humor and taking things to extremes and not stopping when the joke is no longer funny, I think, is the best way to describe that group. And in fact, any interaction that I have with Doug ever, I just don't stop at the point where it stops being funny for Doug. Martin Bertram Miller says, I remember seeing A State First Edition Waterstones, which is a book shopping in the UK, early 2000s. Anything anti-Thatcher gets a thumbs up from me. That's a really good argument to buy it. That's a really good appeal to democracy. Or leftism, I suppose. I don't feel like, I still don't quite feel like I understand what A State is, other than looking really pretty.
I mean, I think it's basically Blades in the Dark, but in a post-apocalyptic cyberpunky setting. Because you still play basically villains. I can't remember what name they give them.
Yeah.
They're not called villains or scoundrels. They're in Blades in the Dark, aren't they?
Yeah.
But similar. You essentially play a gang of sort of bad guys, I think.
Which then kind of just makes it feel a bit like a dirty hack of another game, doesn't it?
Yeah, maybe. It talks about something like, I can't remember how it described it, like a streamlined. It says a smooth, powerful iteration of Forged in the Dark. Describing it that way makes it sound like they've taken it and kind of tweaked it and developed it. I downloaded the little kind of it's not really a kind of quick start, which has just a bit of rules in. It's very minimum amount of rules, and to me it looked straight Forged in the Dark. I didn't see anything different. I didn't examine it in great detail, but I was wondering if there might be some quite big changes to the engine, but they didn't seem to.
Yeah,
it's not a bad thing.
Bruce has reminded me by one of his comments. He says needs to check the preview PDF. That once you back the game, you immediately get access to the preview PDF about it. So I guess the cheeky way to do this is to back the game, grab the PDF, read it, see if you like it, and if you think it sucks, then cancel it. I do it a lot these days, but I'm really not a fan of canceling Kickstarters. I just think it feels disingenuous. So I try to do that as little as possible. I'd rather just not back it in the first place. Although, as Yoel pointed out, the classic Call of Cthulhu is a great example of where I probably, if it hadn't been such a busy Kickstarter to begin with, probably find some guy at Chaos who's saying, "What the hell is this guy doing?" So yeah,
I have to say I'm a big fan of producers that put out a detailed quick start with a good bunch of the rules and an intro adventure, because and I can appreciate why there's all kinds of challenges with doing that, particularly for really small producers and indies. But for me, like, that will really make my mind up. If I'm kind of on the fence, I'll look at the quick start, and often I don't even play it, but just to look at it, get a feel for it, see what the rules are, see what kind of adventure it is or scenario, and then that will then make me leap in, and then I'll back it.
And it also gives you good indication as to the amount of detail and the amount of like attention to detail, I guess, of what the finished product is going to look like. You know, if someone just kind of haphazardly threw a quick start together, you're going to be like, well, what's the end product of what's this book going to look like at the end? I mean, it could look totally different because maybe they added the quick start last minute, but you know, usually somebody that puts out a really nice looking and really well done quick start, you know that the finished like actual product book is going to be reflective of the same type of quality.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of independence and small companies that do great things, I'm really concerned about this next one. I don't think they're going to hit their funding, which is a real shame, and I genuinely mean that. The company is Big Punch Studios, and they made a game called Sandwich Masters, which probably neither of you have heard of. Sandwich Masters is a take that style card game and it's for 2 players, where you have basically a deck of sandwich orders and a deck of sandwich components, and you're just competing through a card drawing mechanism to try and make a sandwich from the orders deck, like the menu items. You put out 4 different sandwich kinds. One might be 2 slices of bread and a piece of cheese in the middle. Another one could be bread, cheese, generic meat, egg, bread. And that latter one is going to be obviously much more profitable to make. The other one
is my kind of sandwich, a generic meat sandwich.
Generic meat sandwich, right?
But it means
love
a bit of generic meat in a sandwich.
Exactly. I mean, that's what we used to get in the cafeterias in the 80s, right? Generic meat. But that's basically the mechanic, and you're just trying to build sandwiches quicker than the other player does. But you've also got sabotage cards in there, so you can sneeze in someone's sandwich or add glass or something, and then you have health inspector cards that you can play as well. It's a lovely little game, and probably our most played game in this house. Bread Rolls is an expansion where you get to play as roles, as in role playing. So you might be an undercover health inspector, which means, for example, that if someone tries to play a health inspector card on you because your sandwich has been sabotaged or you've intentionally put meat in there, you basically can go, haha, I'm an undercover health inspector, you can't attack me. And a few other things like that. But basically, it also opens the game up officially to more than 2 players. You can play with more than 2 players, but it's kind of gets a bit janky after a while because you don't have quite so many cards there. Bruce said, is this being demoed at UKGE? I think they are there, Big Punch Studios. They certainly have been there previously. Worth checking out. There's literally, as you can see, 5 days left. They're not doing great, which is a real shame. Definitely recommend picking up Sandwich Masters, the original. We've bought that like 4 times now. We bought it for ourselves twice. Not because the first one was falling apart, but because the first one was a signed original edition from Kickstarter and we wanted to keep it in good condition. So we bought a 2nd edition copy of it, and we bought it for friends and family as well. It's just really nice. And as you can see, there's a deck of money, there's a deck of sandwich components, and as you can see here. And,
I just looked it up. They are not they're not scheduled at UK Games Expo.
Oh, that's a real shame. They were there last year, unless they're there under Sandwich Masters, which they might be.
Oh, let me check.
Yeah, there you go. Ingredients, sabotage, and bad ingredients.
Oh, they are. Yep.
Yeah. Cool.
2-919.
Cool. So there you go. Check them out. It's a great game, really is, and it's a real shame that it looks like this might not fund. Yeah,
they might still make it in the last, the last,
I really hope
last couple of days surge.
I really hope so, and certainly the fact that they're at Expo, hopefully they'll be able to push some more traffic to the page and to the project. Yeah, it's great fun.
Andy looks like he's trolling me.
Andy trolls everyone.
He sounds like that Pop-Tart game.
That Pop-Tart game, which is still on my shelf. I know Bruce has taken his to Expo. So
nice. I expect pictures. I expect pictures of you guys playing the Pop-Tart game.
There'll be some bad pictures of us playing.
I hope so. And it should be like a drinking game too, I think, if you're going to get...
Well, I think it should be like an eating game, right?
Well, yeah, but I don't expect you guys to bring Pop-Tarts to the convention.
Well, fine. I was going to.
Just bring some generic meat.
Yeah, just bring
generic meat.
I have a bag full of generic meat. I don't go anywhere without some generic meat.
Absolutely.
That's what your other half said, anyway.
I was waiting for that.
How about then? Everyone's talking about it. Devil Made Us Do It.
Oh, is that Monty Cook's game, right?
Yeah.
Monty Cook, yeah.
Yep.
What do you think, Phil? You sound nonplussed.
Monty Cook, I have such a strange relationship's the wrong word. What they do, with the exception of Invisible Sun, which we've bought and is beautiful, the reality is, for me, the majority of the things that they put out, I just feel a bit meh about. Invisible Sun we've played. We also own, but we haven't actually run it. My other half will run it at some point. And I love heist stuff. The heist games, heist movies really do it for me. But there's something about this game that just doesn't win me over. I don't know. Have you guys looked into it?
A little bit.
I love the visuals are amazing. I love the look of it. It's a nice concept. This is this is maybe showing my age or my uncoolness, but I do like a traditional role-playing game. I like a role-playing game in a really chunky book with loads of lore that takes ages to read. Not super crunchy though. I don't like lots of crunch. I like a little bit of crunch. I like a moderate amount of crunch. And those are the kind of games I like. And Simbroom fits that bill very, very nicely for me. That's why I like it so much.
Yeah.
And in this game, it's not GM-less. It has a GM, but in the first section, all the players, so that by that I mean including the GM, everyone at the table sits down and you work out you basically work out the scenario between you.
Yeah.
So they're calling it a truly zero prep game. I can definitely see why that appeals. So you sit down with no idea, and as a table, you work out what the heist is together, and that's like the first phase, and then you kind of jump into it. I mean, not unlike Blades in the Dark, I suppose, in some ways. And I can see why that's cool, and I would love to play it. But I don't. Well, I know I won't run it. It's not the kind of game I enjoy running, so I won't be backing it for that reason. But I think it looks cool.
I think you're in the same place I am, to be honest with you, in that it's just hard to. I don't know. It's hard to justify for me. Yeah, getting it to the table is just not going to happen. But like you, I'd love to play it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it'd be great fun to play. The sort of conceit is that you are you're sent from the future. So you've come from the future, and you are a liar. And a liar is someone who can lie to reality. Yeah. And so it's basically you can bend reality to your will. And the idea is, which is quite cool, that you never roll for that. It always works. But the GM imposes some kind of consequences, and the bigger your lie is, the bigger the consequences are. And it comes with quite a few cool tools for the GM as well. There's a deck of cards with, I don't know if they call them twists or something like that, where the GM can just go, right, what happens now? Take a card and the police show up, or a ceiling caves in. I don't know what they are. Some kind of complication. So I can see that working quite well in play. If you're a bit stuck as the GM, you can just kind of go, let's see what happens. I think it's quite well thought out. I reckon it's probably fun to play.
I wonder if it's just me being a grumpy old man. Maybe it's that actually I like games where I'm telling a story that has a not predefined in the sense of lack of free will or railroady, but there's a story that is there to be told, not a story that we're discovering together. And maybe that's also what I didn't like so much about Blades, and maybe this comes just to the kind of role-playing that I grew up with, and the kind of role-playing that I enjoy the most is where at least one person at the table has a clue what's going on.
Okay, so you don't like the whole improvisation of sessions, and you'd rather have sit down and have have the GM have some sort of plan for the whole session in general, and for like a campaign.
Maybe it's more that I've not yet enjoyed a game that isn't like that. If that makes sense. So maybe it's actually to do with, and maybe this is actually me just not realizing that I've been in games where they've been completely and utterly improvised.
See, here's a
good GM, you can't tell.
Because we did a whole theater run of an improvised live show where we played a role-playing game, totally made up right then and there.
Yeah.
And we had some amazing stories and sessions that I will always remember, and even to this day, I have folks that as certain groups that came to certain shows that still call back to certain moments that happened.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think I'm kind of the opposite. I don't mind it having some sort of railroad and having some sort of but also giving your players the options to do.
Have to have some free will, otherwise it doesn't gel. And players know if actually they don't have some way of influencing the story. And I think that's what I love about Symbaroum is that there is an overarching plot which is happening that players can't necessarily influence, but actually they can do anything. And there's still a great big sandbox there, even in the early games, in the early books. They can make whatever messes they want to and make whatever political mistakes they choose. That's absolutely free of charge. But there's still a thread that's going on outside of their sphere of influence that's happening regardless. And maybe that's what I enjoy, is that sort of thing where actually there's still a story going on regardless of whether or not you choose to involve yourself in it. Whereas I don't know, I think maybe I've just not enjoyed so far those sorts of improvisational games where nothing is known.
So you'd rather like make your mark on the lore?
Not necessarily, but
No.
at least know that there is lore there, that the world is living and breathing, and
Okay.
that you are, you know, that speck of dust within it. But that these things will continue without. Maybe it's the idea of not being the center of attention. I think when you're making the story from the ground up, and everyone's making the story from the ground up, actually the world is egocentric. Whereas if there is a grand plan, so to speak, a grand story going on, then you are most likely just a small part of that. And these things will happen regardless of whether or not you intervene.
I think one of the things that, you know, as both a player and a GM, I think the thing with, because all role playing is improvisation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. To a certain extent. But the thing with improvisation is it's easier and generally works better with constraints.
Yes.
And so a bit of lore, I think, provides those constraints. So for instance, you know, if I say, tell me a really cool story, okay, that's quite difficult. That's quite it's quite a challenge. If I say, tell me a really cool story about a spaceman, it instantly becomes slightly easier. And if I say, tell me a really cool story about a spaceman who's stranded on a planet, it becomes easier still. And I think, so for me, a good game gives you a really interesting world and a background, which acts as the constraint in a way.
Yeah.
And then lets you be creative and inventive within it. So, you know, I think nobody likes a dead straight railroad that you just kind of plod along and you've got no choice to get off it. But I think that's what I mean about like having a chunky book, and I like reading loads of lore, but then I like to play in an open way to say, okay, this is this really interesting setting. Let's have fun in it. I guess for me, that's like a middle between the two extremes, maybe.
Hey, Bob.
Well, thing is,
I mean, for a start, it was really inconvenient that spaceman was allergic to the color orange.
Yes, well, absolutely, because of course the planet he was on was mainly comprised of orange things,
and his socks were orange as well. But he didn't know it. He had really itchy feet the whole time.
See what amazing creative stuff you can come up with off the top of your head.
So yeah, Devil made us do it. It's not going to make me do much in this case. What else do we have going on? There is, of course, let me see if I can get this to open up. Two more Kickstarters that we probably need to discuss. This one isn't out yet, but dum dum dum. Forbidden Lands.
Is that Tuesday? Tuesday that launches.
Tuesday.
Yep.
Neil, have you got a chance to play Forbidden Lands yet? You're muted. Yes. Muted still. You're still muted. You're still muted.
I was just ignoring you, sorry. Yes, I have. I played it a little while back. I haven't played it much. I just kind of played it as a little kind of sort of palate cleanser back in the days when you could play around a table. And I think Forbidden Lands is a game that really benefits from being played at a table. It's lovely to use the cards. It's lovely to have the map in front of you. You know, whether you use minis or not, we didn't. But
fundamental. We've got the great big cloth maps, which I thought, these will be amazing. We can put them on the wall, but they're so large that they won't actually fit on tapestry hangers even.
What?
Yeah, they're huge. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not even exaggerating. I've spent 3 years trying to find a hanging solution that doesn't involve me paying like £300-400 for custom framing, and that won't damage the maps. So yeah, I'm all open to ideas that involve not damaging the maps. That they are enormous. I think the system is really good. I mean, obviously it's derived from the mutant system, Mutant Year Zero. It's way different from Coriolis and Alien and everything, and I just think it works really well. It's probably my favorite. No, it's no probably about it. It is my favorite pulpy fantasy game in terms of the way it works. Don't care so much about the lore and the world, but just the way it all works together. I've played it a few times with. I'm a patron of Sweden Rolls, and at their upper level, you get to play Forbidden Lands with them every couple of months, and it's really nice. Even though we're playing remotely, it's really, really good.
This is my fantasy RPG, my go-to fantasy RPG. Just not because I work for Free League, but just because I really enjoy it. I've always enjoyed. I mean, Mutant was the first game. Mutant Year Zero was the first game that kind of drew me to Free League, and then once they made it a fantasy RPG, I was just like, yeah, this is gonna be hands down the system that I go to.
I've got to share some of this trolling. I'm sorry, Andy.
Sure.
Is it just me, or is Forbidden Lands just Free League jumping on the OSR bandwagon in a way? Nicholas saying, yeah, it's just. That was okay as well. It is kind of OSR-y in terms of the setting, but the system is totally not OSR at all.
The system definitely isn't it? No.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Definitely not. And Eric is back to write the Blood March book.
Yeah.
And he's the one that did Raven's Purge and the in the original writing.
I'm expecting this is going to be like the Bitter Reach, right? But in the other direction.
It is. Yep. You're going to see a new map. Whoops! I don't know if I'm supposed to say that. Never mind. You didn't hear
well,
that.
let's just ignore Doug. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But in the Bitter Reach, we had a great big chunky book, which was the Bitter Reach. Then you had the smaller one, which was Cryptid Modified Mage.
Yep.
And then you had a map and a cloth map that doesn't go on the wall, and the actual like stickers and all that sort of stuff. So I would imagine this is similar.
You could imagine that.
I could imagine that. It would not be beyond the realms of imagination to consider that maybe this campaign will follow the previous campaigns around the Forbidden Lands product.
I will tell you that the art that I've seen for the Book of Beasts. Oh my god!
Beasts?
For the Book of Beasts.
Oh, Beasts.
Yeah, the Beast. Like pretty much, it's a bestiary book.
Yeah.
Oh my god! Like
spoilers, Doug.
Are
you allowed to even say this?
I'm not. Probably not, but I don't know.
No, this is right. No one's watching. It doesn't matter.
No. I'm sure people are, but like. Come Tuesday, and I'm sure that some of it will be previewed throughout the updates and everything. Book of Bees, you guys are. Is it all Rosenberg's art in the Book of Beasts?
Can't possibly comment.
Not saying anything. But
is there going to be PR for it? Are you doing a video?
Yep.
Tuesday,
Wednesday we'll be on.
Okay.
But yeah, it's and yeah, be on the lookout. We've got quite a few.
Be on the lookout for the book.
Be on the lookout for that video on Free League's YouTube channel, because it's going to have a lot of guests on it. But I'm going to tell you right now that bestiary. Like, I love the monster codex for Simber.
Yeah, I've got that right here.
You know what? I miss not being able to mute people when we do these broadcasts. And I really am. It's like, where can I need to mute Phil? I can't do it now. Like that monster.
The Simbrum Monster Codex is just one of the best role playing books on my shelves. It's stunning.
Right? I mean, I use that just as a resource for other games. Like that's how much I love that book. Yeah. But I think you're going to find the similar thing for this Book of Beasts for Forbidden Lands. It's just
nice.
There's some really god damn, like even y'all.
I'm going to be really
watch.
disappointed when there's no Book of Bees.
I'm gonna tell Thomas right now. I'm like, hey Thomas, you know what? We need like a bee golem for this Book of Beasts. This better be a stretch goal because evidently there's a market there for this kind of thing. So
definitely. So that's on Tuesday, by the sound of it.
There might be other golems in that book, by the way. Not that I'm saying that there is or not.
If there's no talking duck, then I'm not interested. So that leaves us with one Kickstarter to talk about.
Surely that's all the interesting Kickstarters already covered.
Yeah, I mean, there's some piece of crap that some kind of reprobate has done.
That's...
How are we doing?
Let's talk Starfarer dice.
£3,000. Nice.
Very conveniently, we have Paladin Roleplaying on the stream this evening.
I guess that would be me.
That would be you.
I'm dead chuffed.
Say up front, I have backed this. We don't get free stuff at the Dark Orb. We pay for it and then get told off by the people we live with. So yes, let's talk about the dice. So I mean, you've been looking at this project for a while, right? So primarily science fiction dice. The typefaces you've chosen are all obviously very kind of.
That was the plan. I mean, I guess you know, of course, you didn't have to use them for science fiction games, I guess. But my idea was, you know, I don't think there's. I think there's a shortage of interesting sci-fi kind of dice. So that was the idea.
There's a shortage of sci-fi dice that are easy to read as well. That's my big gripe. So that's one reason why I haven't looked at these. I definitely had to jump on. But anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go on.
No, it's fine. Yeah, so I thought, sci-fi kind of font, and then I like this idea of the solid color swirled into the transparent color, and then spent a while thinking about the glitter. Actually, spent longer than any one person should do thinking about glitter. Because I really don't like glittery dice. Yeah. And so the idea with these was a very, very small amount of really quite chunky silver glitter to look like stars, but without making them look like glittery dice. And I'm dead chuffed with how they've turned out. And the final prototypes were great.
So we've got Mothership, grey blue with white swirls. And I've got to say, knowing
that's my favorite.
How these look, really. I mean, the photos are never going to do them as much justice as seeing them in person, unfortunately. But
it's very hard to get photos of dice just right, actually. But one thing that I'm really quite sort of strict on is not doing renders, because so renders being, you know, like artists' impressions. Because the dice never end up looking like the renders. Yeah. So all of our Kickstarters, I say all, this is only the third one, but I get prototypes made, take photos of them. The photos go on the Kickstarter, and then they're not perfect and they always look better in real life, but at least they're photos of the real thing and not just here's what it might possibly look like.
Yes, absolutely. I really like the Coriolis ones. I'm a big fan of dark blue, so I'm probably going to back those.
That's the one that I backed for.
And then we've got stretch goals. All of these are locked, but hopefully they'll all be unlocked soon enough. And
well, we hit. I mean, I'm super chuffed. We hit funding and the first stretch goal in the first 24 hours, which was great. I was secretly hoping we'd get funded in the first few days, so to not only get funded but the first stretch goal as well.
That's really cool.
You know, straight off the bat is just I'm over the moon. So whoever, if anyone's watching this, and I know some people are, and Doug and Phil, thank you. I really appreciate it. It's so great to see all the support. It's spent a lot of time, far more time than I should think about dice, and it's nice when that's kind of when that energy comes back. So
you might get some of your very own one day. So we've got the Andromeda mid blue, white swirls, cyborg. I can't wrap my head around how these look in person, but it's a great concept. Hyperspace, pinky red with black swirls and bright yellow. I know a few people who would love that. Parsec. Yeah, again, that's one that's very difficult to kind of do justice, I can imagine.
Yeah, really hard.
Photon, pale pink dice with grey swirl, pink numbering. Dark green with white swirls.
That one's doing very well because we've got the first backer vote. So the way we're doing this is only the first two colors were set, and then every stretch goal, the backers get to vote for which color they want next.
Yeah.
And the green is doing very well, actually. It's
cool.
I've got to say it's not my favorite personally. I mean, I like all of them, or they wouldn't be on here, but it wouldn't be in my top 5, but it is definitely in the backers' top 5. So that's going to be coming very soon, I think. And so is this one, actually.
Red Dwarf.
Red one.
That's excellent. Singularity, very pale blue, black swirls. I like the idea of this. Again, this is hard to imagine that blue because it's hard to see it here, but I think I've got an idea of how that.
It's one of the reasons I've kind of got it on a white background and a dark background, is because some show kind of better on the white and some on the dark. So I thought it was a good way to sort of
absolutely
try and
seriously, it's great.
Kind of show it off.
I really like the look of these. Wormhole. I really like the look of that one as well. And then add-ons. I mean, this is not your first rodeo. You've done a few before, and I know you have a few things in the pipeline as well. Yeah, it's exciting. Well done on pledging. I think the price point that you put in is really genius as well, because it's really easy to find dice projects where they're very expensive, and £10 for a set of dice is actually really competitive for a Kickstarter, I think.
And then additional sets, if you want more than one, the additionals are only 8 each.
Yeah.
Joel in the chat has a question for you, Neil.
Do you know what, Joe? I'm afraid it's not. It's UK and US friendly shipping. So we've got one of 2 or 3 distributors in the US who will send out all our US stuff. Everything else is going out in-house. So it's all shipping from everything that isn't for the US is shipping from the UK. So sorry, Joel. It's something what I've done is we've kept the shipping prices as low as possible. And I think, especially in this climate, I think they're really reasonable. And we can do that because, we have got relationships with different kind of shipping companies and things. And because dice are small and light. Yeah. Which is great. So, I will never be, even if you pledge for loads of sets, it's never going to be a big box, is it? So the shipping costs are pretty low, but there may well be tax and other kind of things. But looking into it, just couldn't make it work to ship a big box to somewhere in the EU and then get it shipped out from there. It just was going to end up costing so much. The shipping would have to be so high that I thought it's probably better just to pay the tax on it. And I appreciate it's a pain to have to pay tax on things. So apologies for anyone who's not in the UK or the US.
Despite popular belief, not all of us voted for that outcome. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, right.
Well, I guess that wraps it up. We're kickstarting the weekend. Little reminder for anyone who hasn't done so far. Last week we had Paul on the show. Was hoping he'd be with us today. Unfortunately, he had a prior engagement because we're on a Thursday. But there is a giveaway for the paperback softcover version of Weird Space RPG. That's running till next Friday at 8 p.m. UK time, at which point we'll look at the results and see how we're doing. If you'd like to win a copy of Weird Space RPG, go back to our show from last week. I'll make sure it's linked to this one in the comments and stuff. There was a competition to tell us your favorite, most memorable, most wild story about a social event in an RPG game, like at a bar or at a club or at a some kind of dinner party where your players or you and your party basically made a mess. Funniest and most entertaining story will win a copy of Weird Space RPG. And if you have a story that can be told that isn't RPG related, if you're not really that much of a gamer, but you have a cool story, so nothing too horrible and vulgar or violent or anything, about a social event that you think would be funny for us to read out, you can win a copy of the Kickstart. The specific criteria for that are in last week's show, so just catch up with that if you haven't seen it already. I think we repeated it towards the end as well, and there's a little banner across the screen, so you can kind of fast forward into that. If you've enjoyed the show, please like and subscribe. Doug, where can people find you?
Just search for Victory Condition Gaming on YouTube and Twitch and Instagram. And
are you twitching later?
Yes, I will be actually. Yep, I'll be painting. I twitch a lot, but mostly it's when I get on the show and people harass me about a book of bees. That's when I twitch the most.
So
looking at you, Andy.
He's covered in bees. If you don't know what that is, then you need to look at Eddie as well. So yeah, there'll be a painting stream, I presume, this evening at 12 a.m. UK time.
Yeah. So if you're not doing anything,
I normally end up watching that despite my better judgment. So if you want to see comments of me heckling Doug, and Doug and Tony crying silently, wishing I was no longer on this mortal coil, then that's usually worth it.
You weren't there last week, were you?
The
chat got really hostile.
I was there.
Were you there?
I think maybe. I don't know.
I don't think so. It got really hot. Like we were getting trolled pretty hard.
And I wasn't there.
It's almost like Andy was there with us.
Oh, poor Andy. One day you'll meet him.
I know. I hope so.
Yeah. Neil, where can people find you or your products?
People can go to paladinroleplaying.com or search Instagram or Facebook for Paladin Roleplaying. Or, of course, the thing I'd most like people to do is go to Kickstarter and search for Starfarer Dice, or probably they'll come up as well if you search for Paladin Roleplaying, and at least consider backing a set.
Yeah, what he just said.
And at UK Games Expo this weekend.
Games Expo, yes, I'll be there. Neil will be there. Friend of the show, Bruce, will be there. Many more people that we know and don't know will be there as well. All hopefully practicing safe gaming with face coverings where possible. Double jabbed, so I have both of my 5G antennas installed, but I'm still going to be doing my best to be an anti-social gamer because that's what I do best. It's been a pleasure. Thank you both. We've run a little over time compared to my expectations, but that's because, as always, we end up having a good chat. It's been wonderful.
Talking loads of nonsense about games, which is what we like to do.
Absolutely. So thank you once again. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. Hopefully see some of you tomorrow. And as always, I hope that your dice rolls are better than mine. Ciao.
Have a great UK Games Expo, everyone.